Baltimore Ravens 37, Seattle Seahawks 3. Another dominant outing for the Ravens. There was in every window yesterday, there was a battle of 6-2 teams, or 5-2 teams. Good teams. Say good teams. I might not be able to think straight today, just so you know. Very little sleep. I didn't get the steroid injection.
No.
Either. It's not like draft night where I was going.
You don't have one of those on standby just for rough days?
Imagine. Got a show to do. Honey, let's do it.
Like an EpiPen, just...
Yeah. Ravens 37-3. Talk.
Yeah.
By the way, people think that we hate each other on the review shows because I think we're just, cranky and tired. And sometimes we disagree. Like, we don't see the game exactly the same way, so we disagree on stuff.
Late last night, I was anticipating quite a cranky Monday morning. The extra hour thing is bullshit, right? Because my circadian rhythm doesn't know that, right? This extra hour of sleep, my body wakes up the same time it normally wakes up, only it's short an hour now, right? Because the clocks have gone back.
Stayed up later.
Yeah, so now you just you get to the evening, and your body thinks, well, it's midnight now, only it is, and it's 11.
I like it. The first morning's great. I feel like, wow, I just get that extra hour of sleep until you realize, wait, Sunday night football starting.
Yeah.
What used to be 9 o'clock. Now
exactly. So all that happened is I ended up watching an entire day's worth of football, writing notes on it all. Found time to do a workout in the gym in the middle of it all. All this stuff, and there's an extra hour of work involved at the end of it. So it's 10, 11 p.m. I'm waiting for this game to wrap up, Sunday Night Football. I'm kind of cranky at this point, and there's not a lot of sleep following this. I can imagine tomorrow's going to be quite cranky, but apparently the sleep has reset me, and I'm okay. Anyway, yes, Seattle, got beat down, really. Baltimore cooked. A lot of it was, every time you looked up, Geno Smith seemed to be either throwing the ball back to the defense, gifting the ball back to the defense, or taking a sack in some way. It didn't look good from a Seattle offense point of view.
Yeah, it was rough. Baltimore, I shouted out DVOA on the preview show that Baltimore,
you did.
As a team, was looking good, but their defense, the unit as a whole, looking really, really good. Geno Smith hit Geno Stone with the interception. Geno Stone with his 4th straight game with a pick.
Yeah, now leads the NFL, right, with 6?
6, yes.
He is having one of those, remember Jarius Byrd when he led the NFL in interceptions and when he sort of looked through them all? It's how does the ball just keep getting thrown to him? You're you hear all the time, these things even themselves out, right? Over time it shakes out and everybody gets some of these gifts. And you're yeah, but it doesn't actually. Sometimes a guy goes through a season and just gets the ball thrown at him randomly a whole bunch more than anybody else in the league. And that kind of appears to be happening to Geno Stone at the moment. I'm not saying Geno Stone isn't playing well, and he's making some of these plays all by himself, but he is having a freakish volume of wayward passes land themselves in his airspace this year.
Baltimore so Geno Stone making plays, and look, every time Seattle was attempting a comeback, Baltimore just kind of shut it down, man. It was... as you mentioned, negative plays. Kyle Van Noy had 2 sacks just before the half. If you look at the contributors for the Ravens, you have Jadeveon Clowney, I don't want to say having a career year, but having another Clowney-type year where if you put him on a good defense, the pressures are going to rack up. He's a good, solid player. But Kyle Van Noy was on the couch until week 4, and he's up at 6 sacks or something like that now as part of the Ravens. Other teams have these, random contributors, but the Ravens are really putting that all together. Contributors on the defensive side of the ball, and again, an offense that just, the analogy I used yesterday, pitching analogy, of course, like a pitcher that changes speeds. The Ravens having Lamar's speed to deal with, Zay Flowers in space, and then all of a sudden Gus Edwards running downhill, an offensive line that can block downhill. I appreciate somebody on Twitter highlighting Tyler Linderbaum's block. Somebody else had highlighted Linderbaum's block, and then somebody tagged me and said, playmaking center, right? There's just so much to deal with
Multiple
this Ravens
blocks.
offense. And now add Keaton Mitchell to the mix as well. So Ravens are cooking, man.
Multiple blocks by Linderbaum. He decked somebody and then kept going and found a couple other guys to take out in that play as well. Really impressive. The Ravens offensive line in this game was pretty insane. Ronnie Stanley had one play where Leonard Williams just wrecked him. drove him back into, I think, a trip, and then, properly put him on the ground, the sort of reverse pancake.
In the Boye Mafe.
Yeah. So he had a couple of rough plays, but that was it. Like, he had 2 bad plays, I think, and that was basically the entirety of his. Almost nobody else in the offensive line gave up anything at all. Conversely, on the other side, I mean, maybe the most important thing in this game, Jason Peters played 10 snaps, therefore we are not older than the oldest NFL player. Unfortunately for Seattle, that means that they had a tackle rotation of Stone, Forsythe, and Jason Peters and his 41-year-old ass. That's not going to help.
Stone had been playing well.
Yes.
Until yesterday.
But when you're Stone, Forsythe, you're only ever, days away from, he played well being a past tense thing, not a current and future prospect.
Yeah, Seattle's offense is interesting there, where Geno Smith had been under a bit of pressure. He had been one of the best in the league at avoiding sacks per pressure, which was not a strength of Geno Smith early in his career. We talk a lot about how that's a pretty stable metric, and the concerns with Sam Howell and how often he's getting sacked and how that doesn't always go away. Geno Smith had been doing a better job, but in this game, as you said, outside of the one deep crosser to DK Metcalf for a big gain, like Seattle really didn't have much else. A couple nice throws for Geno Smith, but as you mentioned, a couple turnover-worthy plays, a lot of negative plays, and just Baltimore's defense simply winning up front. And then, Devin Duvernay with a big punt return in there. They just offensively and in special teams and defensively just put together a complete game. And they did it again against, this time it was Seattle. A couple weeks ago it was Detroit, just beating up on teams that are supposed to be 2 of the best teams in the NFC.
That was probably the most complete game by OBJ since, the Super Bowl, I guess, where he got injured.
Tyler Huntley unlocking him to get into the end zone.
Now, okay, he had I think he had a fumble in there, right, as well, and I think he had a drop pass, but so it wasn't perfect. His grade's not going to be amazing, but they were making plays. He led the team in terms of first down catches. OBJ was actually making some plays and suggesting that, hey, maybe this is going to work out.
By the way, so Keaton Mitchell, the rookie, he comes in, goes 9 carries for 138 yards. The Ravens finish with 298 yards on the ground. That includes kneels and the whole deal. But Mitchell with 138. Lamar had 60. Gus Edwards had just 5 carries for 52. He did break off a 42-yarder in there as well, 2 touchdowns. And then Justice Hill had 40. But Keaton Mitchell adds a little juice to the picture here. I think it was Amina Kimes' favorite during draft season. She was tweeting about him a lot, and during the preseason. Just another dimension to this Ravens offense.
Yeah, and not great for the idea of, Seattle tries to add some stoutness to the middle of the defense with Leonard Williams before the trade deadline, and then they give up 1 million rushing yards.
Yeah, I try not to overreact to the trade deadline moves. Like, Leonard Williams didn't work out, and Montez Sweat didn't do much in his first game as a Bear or whatever it might be. But yeah, sometimes it takes time for that to happen. I would just keep an eye on Mitchell. Ran a 4.37, undrafted free agent this year coming out of East Carolina. Yeah, 5'8", 191 with some juice, man. And again, I just think that Ravens offense shows all the different ways that they make life difficult for opposing defenses, and they did in this game. Lamar played pretty clean overall too. There's a strip sack in there. I mean, this offense, as I was tweeting yesterday, as long as he's not fumbling, I'm not saying every fumble's his fault, but as long as he's not putting the ball on the turf, this offense has been really good this year.
Yeah, and they are still a pretty sort of progressive offense in terms of going for it in 4th downs, so they're difficult to get off the field as well, because even if they're getting close on first 3 downs, if they're in range in with 4th down, they've got a pretty good shot at going for it as well. You've got that extra down to try and stop them. So it can, this is obviously a game that they had well in hand, and they're still going for it on 4th down and kind of piling on Seattle.
All right, man. Ravens moved to 7-2. Seahawks fall to 5-3. They're now tied with the 49ers here for the top of the NFC West. Ravens sitting atop the AFC North, who, if the playoffs started today, Sam, the NFL would be out of a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But also every AFC North team would be in the playoffs. Yeah. All 4 of them would be in the playoffs. The Ravens would have the number 2 seed as of today.